Broadcasting from the Cass Corridor in Detroit, this is The Metro, a slice of news, culture, and conversation. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. Today on the program, America has long been fascinated with wealth and richness. The question is, do rich people control our politics, and to what extent?
Is their political influence increasing, or is it just more visible? We'll talk to some experts and take your calls.
And Detroit's not necessarily known for its parks, but it should be. We'll learn about a way to help our parks continue to grow and thrive.
But first, Black Bottom. You've probably heard the name before, but many have forgotten or perhaps have never seen what it looks like. The name Black Bottom is a nod to its rich topsoil, a resource that initially attracted European settlers. During the Great Migration, many Black Americans moved to Detroit, including my ancestors. But due to discriminatory housing policies, the Black Bottom neighborhood was one of a handful of areas where African Americans could live. It quickly became a bustling Black neighborhood with businesses and a nightlife.
Yeah, Tia, but during the 1950s and 60s, the I-375 freeway was built through Black Bottom as a part of urban renewal across America. The construction decimated the historic community. Today, Black Bottom is just a fading memory with a plaque. But a local organization in Detroit has been working to change that. Black Bottom Archives is a community archive that's committed to preserving Black Detroit stories. And the organization is celebrating its 10th year. Marcia Black and Lex Draper Garcia Bay from Black Bottom Archives are joining us in the studio now. Marcia is the Director of Archives and Education, and Lex is the Director of Community Engagement and Programs. Lex and Marcia, welcome to the Metro.
Peace. Thanks for having us.
So, Marcia, what inspired you all to start this organization 10 years ago?
Yeah, so Lex and I are not a part of the founding collective that started Black Bottom Archives. It was started in 2015 by P.G. Watkins and Camille Johnson and a larger group of Black Detroiters who wanted to create a platform that centered around Black Detroit stories. So thinking 2015, there was a lot of ongoing conversation about gentrification and present-day displacement. And that displacement was also taking place in the media. So they developed a digital publication, and that was our start. And then we eventually had a podcast, we had a book club, and then in 2019 is when we transitioned to doing more historic storytelling around Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. So it's been a journey, and we've had many different iterations, and we're excited to see what the next 10 years looks like.
So you saw there was really an appetite for these stories, for the uncovering of that history as the years continued to progress. So, Lex, the word archives in the title of your organization gives the initial impression that perhaps you're overseeing a library of information about the Black Bottom neighborhood. Now, you do some of that, but that's certainly not all. How has your work evolved in the last 10 years?
So when we think of the word archive, we think about, like you said, materials and products. And what we do is we're a living archive. And so our archive necessarily isn't exclusive to items, but our archive includes stories and pictures. And so when we think of archiving, we're the storytelling is what we're doing. And so we do that through the Sankofa Community Research Project that we have right now. We're collecting stories of Black Bottom descendants and people who lived in the neighborhood.
Tell us about some of the oral histories from people connected to the neighborhood or who lived in the neighborhood. I wonder if you could talk about one of those histories that's really indelible for you.
I don't know, Marcia, do you have a favorite oral history?
Yes, I do have a favorite. Rosie Chapman. I hope that she's listening now. She is a storyteller in her own right, and she decided to share her story with us. And she grew up in Black Bottom, and she talks a lot about how the community networks were really important to her, and how impactful it's been that, as she's had kids and grandkids, that she hasn't had a place to be able to take them to remind them of, what their roots are. And a lot of what we've been asking people, in addition to asking them to, recollect what it was like and how they've been impacted, is what they would like to see as repair in the 375 project. And so, she's one of those people that has been advocating for there to be investment in business, investment in arts and culture that allows us to make sure that Black Detroit stories live on and are remembered. And that's been a lot of what we've heard from folks, is like really wanting to have a space where Black arts and culture is centered and valued in the city.
Can you talk more about that, about lifting up the stories and voices of people who lived in Black Bottom or were connected with the neighborhood, and what that has meant to them to finally have that kind of public consciousness and awareness now from others?
Yeah, I mean, so, the oral history and the preservation and storytelling work that we're doing is built off the decades of work that Black elders in the city have been doing to preserve this story. Baba Jaman Jordan, the City of Detroit historian, being a person who has done a lot of that work. So we're really building off of those blocks, and there have been different oral history projects over time. So the group of folks that we're talking to who are survivors of that community oftentimes were kids. And so we're getting a kid perspective, that they're now reassessing as adults, which has been really, I think, healing for both of us, having that exchange of them being able to remember joyous memories and to be able to tell me as a young Black Detroiter what it was like, what Detroit was like in a way that I'll never be able to experience. So I think just, being able to be seen by folks that you're in community with has just been, really heart-feeling type work for us.
You're listening to The Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. We're speaking with Marcia Black and Lex Draper Garcia Bay from Black Bottom Archives about the historically Black neighborhood known as Black Bottom. Now, Marcia, I-375, as we know, runs through a large portion of what Black Bottom was. The state is planning to reconstruct that area. You talked to us a little bit about that and talked about one of those huge supporters. I want to get to her name to call her out one more time because I love the story that you had there about her, Rosie Chapman. So there's so many people like that who have stories that they're trying to save and preserve this area. So is your organization part of the planning on how we can see some of Rosie's ideas coming to life?
Yeah, so as a result, we launched this research project in 2023. So we've been doing outreach now for a good 2 years. We launched it in Juneteenth. And as a part of that work, we were able to build a relationship with Interborough Partners, which is a group who's been contracted to do the land use study for the city of what that 30 acres of development would look like. So we've been working with them to expand some of these outreach conversations, having a presence at the 375 community meetings that have been happening and will continue to be happening, to have dedicated space for us to imagine what this land could look like, but also centering the experiences of folks who have historically been displaced, which is Black Detroiters.
And I definitely want to come back, Marcia, to talking about just being from Detroit, hearing those stories and being, younger and envisioning and imagining what that Detroit looked like. So we're going to come back to that if we get time, but I want to bring the conversation over to Lex. Mm-hmm. How do you think the city should account for its history in Black Bottom? How do you think the city should add it into that 375 project and other projects expanding in that area? How do you see that preservation happening?
It's been talked about happening in a lot of different ways, and I think that some of the ways that the people are thinking of is a place to host the history. So a building or something, like the people want a place to be able to go more than just a placard or a monument. They want something to be able to visit and be in, to give them that sense of having a home to be able to reference, like Marcia referenced about not having a home to be able to go back and take people to or show this is where I grew up, something that they can really feel connected to.
And it just harps back home with me as well. It's one of the things my dad, the Lodge, went through his neighborhood when he was younger as well. So there are spaces and places that just no longer exist in Detroit. And so it's very, very important to see this project happening. So Lex, staying with you, let's talk about your anniversary exhibit. It's called 10 Years Back, 10 Years Forward. Mm-hmm. And you're partnering with the Detroit Historical Museum as well. What should we expect from this exhibit?
So the exhibit is giving us an opportunity to celebrate the past 10 years of our work. And so you'll be able to see how we started with the zines and how we got our start with the Black Bottom Street View exhibit. It gives a nod to the podcast. And I think there'll be an opportunity to maybe listen to some of those clips in the exhibit. And then it's also going to talk about the work that we're doing now with the Sankofa Community Research Project. And so you'll be able to listen to some actual oral histories on people that we've collected. And then you'll also be able to imagine with us what we want the next 10 years of our organization to look like. So what does the next 10 years of Preserving Black Stories look like? And for us, that actually means we're launching the Preserving Black Legacy Fellowship this year. And so we're going to give an opportunity for 5 to 7 Detroiters to be able to have training in oral history and archiving, to be able to learn how to share and preserve stories of the neighborhoods of their choice or a piece of Detroit's history.
All right. My brain just went brown. So to say the name of that again.
So it's the Preserving Black Legacy Fellowship.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular, so you're basically building the next generation of archivists
Exactly.
And storytellers, human storytellers, basically.
We will be, but it's also an intergenerational. And so like this next generation isn't necessarily people who are youth. They could be elders, people. We want to be able to have an intergenerational conversations.
And I love that so much because we often talk about just, people being libraries themselves, people having so much knowledge. You listen to the oral stories of the people from the past who lived in Black Bottom and Paradise Valley as well. And you just think about the libraries and the knowledge and the history that they have to tell. And so as we kind of wind down here talking about going back to that, and we're going to talk to both of you all because you put it in my brain, intergenerational. It impacts all of us. So when we think about the city of Detroit, we think about envisioning what it was, Black Bottom. What does that make you feel like when you think about what Detroit was and what it could be in the future, in the near future? You're talking about the future. We're going to start with you, Marcia.
Yeah, I think hearing past stories of what it was like, a big theme is community sufficiency and really just the strategy of or just the understanding of how our survival is intertwined with each other's and, the creativeness that came out of that of because of the circumstances that we were in and the ways that we were discriminated against and locked out of opportunities and, literal shopping centers that we couldn't go to. There were Black folks who were creative and brave and, in a community that they were supported in to come up with solutions that we're Black-led and centered Black people. And so I think for me, that just lets me know that a future like that is possible and that there's that creativeness and that imagination is the thing that's going to help us to get there. And that work isn't just, held within the youth, but that's an intergenerational conversation that needs to happen because there's elders who can speak directly to what it was like to live in a community like that. And for many generations of Black Detroiters now, I'm not sure that we could say that we resonate with that. So being able to have those conversations to know and dream about what's possible, I think is really important to our work.
Same thing to you, Lex.
One of the things that I love to share is that I'm a 4th generation Detroiter raising 5th generation Detroiters. And so when I think about the power of that and how much I love our city, Detroiters love our city in a way that I've never seen other people love their city. And so for us to be able to take that pride and to take those stories and to be able to preserve them and just to be able to share more about it. And by doing that, by having these intergenerational moments of being able to remove the divide of what the elders and what the youth. And it's not very different. And having these conversations allows us to be able to remember that it's a lot more similarities than there are differences between the generations.
Marcia Black and Lex Draper Garcia Bay are from Black Bottom Archives. Their new exhibit, 10 Years Back, 10 Years Forward, opens February 8th at the Detroit Historical Museum. Thank you both, Marcia and Lex, for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
From the WDET newsroom, the Justice Department has shut down a legal aid program for immigrants in Metro Detroit. The Detroit Free Press reports the Acacia Center for Justice ran a help desk at immigration court to educate people about their legal rights and how the system works. President Trump is stopping Biden administration plans to limit PFAS in drinking water. PFAS are chemicals that don't break down. They're also known as forever chemicals, and they've been linked to cancer and other health problems.
Coming up at 11, there is a lot of money in politics, and the current presidential team is only continuing that trend. Donald Trump's administration has people who have over $328 billion, and those individuals want to run the country like a business. And so next hour, we want to ask you, should we run government like a business? Call in, let us know, 313-577-1019.
Up next, we'll hear a voice that is going to sound very familiar. Tanya Mosley, co-host of Fresh Air and a Detroit native, joins us. We'll be right back on the Metro. Stay right there.